welcome to our presentation. Our group members are Izul Fitri bin Mahmud Zuhoy, Muhammad Anwar Ikmal bin Andasura, Nur Azizah binti Omar, and Hana Afiza binti Rosman. Introduction.
In August 2018, as its stock hit the $200 mark, Apple became the first $1 trillion US company in history. Welcome to our animated show of history. This episode presents to you the history of the world's first trillion-dollar company. Apple was founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in April 1976. Stephen Paul Jobs was born to Abdul Fattah Jandali and Joanne Schiebel on February 24, 1955 in San Francisco, but then was adopted by Paul Jobs and Claire Hagopian, a Bay Area blue-collar couple whom Jobs is extremely grateful to and always considers as his parents 1,000%. By the time he was 10, Jobs was deeply involved in electronics and befriended many of the engineers in the neighborhood. While studying at Monte Loma Elementary School in Mountain View, Jobs hardly made any friends and was frequently bullied that he considered dropping out of school. When he was 13, Jobs was given a summer job by Bill Hewlett. He then entered Homestead High School with Bill Fernandez, a fellow electronics hobbyist. They decided to enroll in John McCollum's Electronics 1. McCollum and the rebellious Jobs would eventually clash, and Jobs began to lose interest in the class. Jobs and Steve Wozniak were introduced in 1971 by a mutual friend. The two Steves got along thanks to their shared love of technology. The two Steves attended the Homebrew Computer Club together, a computer hobbyist group in California's Menlo Park. Woz produced the first computer with a typewriter-like keyboard and the ability to connect to a regular TV as a screen. The computer was later christened the Apple I, which was the archetype of every modern computer. Jobs saw Woz's computer, recognized its brilliance, and sold his VW microbus to help fund its production. Wozniak sold his HP calculator, and together they founded Apple Computer Inc. on the 1st of April 1976 alongside Ronald Wayne. Jobs convinced him to take 10% of the company's stock and act as an arbiter should he and Woz come to blows. But Wayne backed out 12 days later, selling for just $500, a holding that would have been worth $72 billion 40 years later. Apple's very first logo was drawn by Ronald Wayne, depicting Isaac Newton under an apple tree. After that, the Apple logo was designed again with the rainbow scheme. It was used for 22 years until Steve Jobs had asserted the Apple logo after he returned from Apple Farm. A year after foundation, the Apple II was released. It was a much more commercial product and came with its own case. It had a MOS technology processor running at just 1 MHz with 4 KB of RAM and was one of the 3 1977 Trinity computers generally credited with creating the home computer market. The Apple III was designed to take on the business environment that was released on May 1980. Because of lacking the cooling fan as Jobs wished to, the company had to recall thousands of Apple III. On December 12, 1980, Apple launched the IPO of its stock. It instantly created more millionaires, about 300, than any company in history. The Apple I, II, and III computers were text-based machines, much like the earliest IBM PCs. But Jobs wanted something more intuitive. So the Lisa launched in 1983 with its graphical user interface in place. The Macintosh debuted the following year. Jobs was forced out of Apple in 1985 after a long power struggle with the company's board and its then CEO, John Sculley. Jobs then took a few of Apple's members with him to found Next, that specialized in computers for higher education and business markets. Apple purchased Steve Jobs' company Next in 1996. This would not only bring Steve Jobs back to Apple's management, but Next technology would become the foundation of the Mac OS X operating system. In 1997, Jobs stepped in as the CEO to begin a critical restructuring of the company. At the 1997 Macworld Expo, Steve Jobs announced that Apple would be entering into a partnership with Microsoft. Included in this was a 5-year commitment from Microsoft to release Microsoft Office for Macintosh, as well as a $150 million investment in Apple. While discontinuing Apple's licensing of its operating system to third-party computer manufacturers, one of Jobs' first moves was to develop the iMac, a family of all-in-one Macintosh desktop computers. In 1998, the first iMac was released. At that time, Apple had suffered a series of setbacks as consumers increasingly opted for Wintel, Windows PCs, machines instead of Apple's Performa models. The iPod was released in late 2001. The iPod line came from Apple's Digital Hub category, when the company began creating software for the growing market of personal digital devices. 3 years later, the iTunes Music Store was launched, with 2 million downloads in the first 16 days. The first version of the iPhone became publicly available on June 29, 2007 in selected countries. While it wasn't the first smartphone, it leapfrogged far beyond the competition and launched the mobile revolution. The MacBook Air, released in 2008, was the biggest change in Apple's laptop line for years, and invented a whole new category of computers called Ultrabooks. In August 2011, Jobs died of respiratory arrest related to the pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor. Apple then bought Beats, which made headphones and ran a music service, for $3 billion in 2014. A year later, Apple released Apple Watch. So far, Apple has released 11 generations of iPhone, along with several versions of iPad. The iPhone is one of the most widely used smartphones in the world, and its success has been credited with helping Apple become one of the world's most valuable publicly traded companies. So, are you using an iPhone?
Hi guys, so now we are going to discuss about vision, mission and objective of Apple Incorporation. Before we go further, we must know what is vision and what is mission. Vision can be defined as a long-term achievement of a company that the company wants to achieve. And vision is also the first step in strategic planning. Vision will provide strong foundation to develop mission statement of the company itself, and vision is usually short and precise. This means that a vision is a very long-term aim of the company of what the company wanted to be in the future. So the first question, in order to incorporate a company, the first question that should be asked is, what do you want the company to be in the future? That is what we call as vision. Meanwhile, a mission is the statement of purpose or reasons for the existence of the company. The mission will distinguish one company from another, which means that we can just easily differentiate between two companies by the mission of the company itself. And the mission of a company is very crucial for establishing objectives and formulating strategies for the company. Now, moving on to the vision and mission of Apple Incorporation. So the vision of the Apple Incorporation is, it is said that we believe that we are on the face of the earth to make great products, and that's not changing. Which means that the vision of the Apple Incorporation is to make the best product that the customers have or ever experience in this world. This vision of Apple Incorporation can be proved by observing the trend of the users of Apple products. The users of Apple product is increasing day by day, so it can be said that Apple Incorporation is slowly moving towards its vision. Meanwhile, the mission of Apple Incorporation is to bring the best user experience to its customers through its innovative hardware, software, and services, which means that the mission of Apple Incorporation is by giving the customers the satisfaction of Apple products through hardware, software, and services of their product. This mission of Apple Incorporation can be proved by observing the products of Apple. Every year, we can see that Apple Incorporation released its product with a better resolution, better software, better hardware, and better services in their products. So we can say that the mission of Apple Incorporation have been achieved every year. Now we are going to discuss about the objective of a company. What is objective? Objective can be simply say that a specific desired result that should be achieved by the company in the future. So this means that the objective of a company should be and must be specific. If it is not clear of what the aim of the company, then it is not considered as objective. Objective is also should be suitable, realistic, and measurable over time. Thus, this means that if the objective is not suitable for the company, then it should be removed from being the objective of the company. And objective also is the long-term achievement that is aimed by the company. Long-term achievement, by the word long-term, it means that must be over 1 year of span. Okay, now what are the objectives of Apple Incorporation? The objectives of Apple Incorporation are desired by the mission of the company, which are, the first one is to give the best user experience, which means that the Apple Incorporation are trying its best to give their customers the best experience ever that they have ever encountered. That is why we can see that Apple release their products every year that have been improvement in terms of innovation of the products. The second objective is improving the lives of people. By saying improving the lives of people, Apple Incorporation means that their products are meant to ease the customers' everyday routine, and it will be easy for the customers to communicate or to surf the internet or to gain knowledge from their products. The third objective of Apple Incorporation is the empowerment of the public. This can be shown by the public that a majority of the public have been using their products, either smartphones or iPad or anything else that are produced by Apple Incorporation. This shows that Apple Incorporation have been influencing the public to use their products. And last but not least, the objective of Apple Incorporation is to produce a top quality product. By means of top quality product, this can be shown by the production of Apple Incorporation every year, which have been improvement in terms of their cameras or their software or their hardware. So now, the vision, mission and objective of Apple Incorporation have been presented to you. Now I want to ask you guys, are the vision, mission and objective of Apple Incorporation have been achieved by the company?
Analyzing SWOT using external analysis and internal analysis. What is SWOT analysis? SWOT analysis is a tool that will help the organization to identify the strategy to improve the performance of the business. Next, the company can use SWOT analysis to correlate with the best interests, as business can reduce the chance of failure by looking through the SWOT. SWOT can also be categorized as a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. External factor evaluation. It is a technique that measures performance of the company outside of the organization. It is a factor that cannot be controlled by the organization, such as having the competitor that may affect the price of the brand. To control that, the company has to foresee their trends by having external factor evaluation metrics, as it can examine the external environment to identify threats and also opportunities. To develop EFE metrics, there are formulas to be followed, which is step 1 is to gather all the list that is suitable for external factor evaluation under opportunities and threats. Next, assign the weight for each factor from 0 until 1, and 0 will represent factor that is the least important. Then, set the rating scale from 1 to 4. Each of the rating scale will define different kind of response. Then, multiply the weight with the rating to get the weighted score. Lastly, sum up all the weighted score to get the total overall. External factor evaluation metrics. The higher weight fall under opportunities, which are customers' growth, as well as Apple has developed lots of products from iPhone to MacBook, smartwatch and others. Apple also has its own software which make them more trusted. However, as well as the opportunities, Apple also facing a threat, which Apple has been lawsuit for $500 million for slowing down the performance of older phone in order to encourage customers to buy newer models. Internal factor evaluation. It is a factor that will analyze the trait of the inside organization. An internal analysis is the investigation of the company capability, cost position, and also viability competitive to stay in the marketplace. Internal factor evaluation metrics is one of the strategies to evaluate the company's strengths and weaknesses. For the formula of IFE, it is the same as external factor evaluation. However, for the rating scale, the rating will define the major weaknesses and also major strengths. Internal factor evaluation metrics. It is the brand of choice compared to Microsoft or Google, as Apple could not stand alone with their software and also products. They have professional experts to research on the latest trends. However, it is also said that the Apple product, especially the lifespan of the battery, could not last longer, so the customer need to purchase a new model of minimum 1 year.
So, what is competitive profile metrics? Well, competitive profile matrix is an analytical tool that helps to establish companies' competitive advantages. It uses easy format that are readable so that company can distinguish the difference as clearly with one look from other company. With competitive profile matrix, people can identify easily of company's competitive landscape, the position it is in the market, and differentiate company's product and services from the other competitors or brands. One of the many advantages of using competitive profile matrix, it helps Apple to identify its critical success factor advantages over other companies. It also identifies the weakness of Apple Incorporated, which enabling them to invest more in areas they lack in order to get better performance. And lastly, they are also able to clearly distinguish themselves than other companies' product. However, using competitive profile matrix comes with its own disadvantages. Firstly, it is because it is difficult to gather data. This is because information are classified and are not made public by the other company. Next, the data may also have been exaggerated and may not be accurate to the actual data. This will affect the total score of the company, which plays a crucial part of differentiating Apple Incorporated with other companies. Steps for competitive profile matrix. Firstly, we list critical success factor from Apple's Incorporated, external factor evaluation, and internal factor evaluation. Next, number 2, we need to assign the weight of each factors ranges from 0, which is not important, to 1, which is considered very important. And thirdly, we need to assign the rates of critical success factor that ranges from 1 to 4. 1 being the major weakness, 2 being the minor weakness, 3 considered as minor strength, and 4 considered as major strength. After that, we need to multiply the weight of the critical success factor with the rate it has received. Only then we can determine and summarize the company's total score. This is competitive profile matrix for Apple and its competitor, which is Samsung and Huawei. The first critical success factor is the brand of choice. Here we can see that both Apple and Samsung weight theirs to be 0.1 and rate them to be 4, which dominates them over Huawei at that time. But Apple gained slight advantages over Proficient Research than Samsung and Huawei. However, we can see that Samsung and Huawei dominates their expansion in services more so than Apple in that time. However, Apple's utilizing artificial intelligence is far more advanced, which is called Siri. They deliver more than Samsung and Huawei ever could in the year 2015. Both Apple and Samsung are seen to be having consistent customer growth with the weight 0.2 and rate 4. But Apple gained another slight advantage over Samsung and Huawei through their smart wearable technology. In high-priced products, Apple, Samsung, and Huawei weight all theirs to be 0.1 and rate them to be 2. Here we can see that none of them dominates over the other in terms of price. But Samsung and Huawei gained slight advantage over Apple due to having a variety of products. Apple is not known for having a product variety, which makes them lack in choice of product rather than Samsung and Huawei. But the brand reputation of Apple is still seen dominates over Samsung and Huawei with the weight 0.15 and rate 2. And the critical success factor of product quality, Samsung is have slight advantage over Apple, but not more so than Huawei. We can see the total score here of Apple and Samsung to be both 3.4, and while Huawei has total score of 2.55. This is the competitive profile matrix Apple analysis. Apple Incorporated shares the same total score as Samsung Electronics Company Limited of 3.4. However, their critical success factors rate differs, especially because Apple's and Samsung's product score high for as the brand of choice and having consistent customer growth consumers in year 2015. It can also be said that Apple lack in their product variety when compared to Samsung and Huawei. Due to Apple's focus on few products, Apple's consumer does not have many choice in terms of Apple's product. However, Huawei and Samsung have slight advantage over Apple in terms of their expansion in services, which they rate theirs to be 3, whereby Apple rate theirs to be 2. It can be concluded that in 2015, Apple and Samsung clashed head-to-head with one having advantage over the other, while Huawei is clearly seen unable to keep up with the first two companies. By going through Apple's external factor evaluation, their most effective critical success factor is by being the people's brand of choice. Furthermore, by producing their own smart wearable technology, Apple is perceived by consumers to make better product than other brands. Apple also had better technology of artificial intelligence, which is Siri, that is far more advanced than other products could offer in the year 2015. However, due to Apple's success, they are also faced with threats such as rising numbers of competitors in the same industry that target Apple market shares. This new competitor could be Xiaomi and Realme. To make matters worse, the tariff war between United States and China, which consists of Apple's revenue of more than 20%, have affected Apple sales ever since. And lastly, when the world is going through the pandemic that is happening could affect the sales and price of Apple's product.